Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into something pretty unusual, really. We've got these sources, mainly a transcript from just what, October 8th, 2025, and they lay out this alleged operation, part financial attack, part digital spying, it seems. We're talking about claims that major systems like Chase credit cards, Google Cloud billing are being weaponized against one specific target, a website called spyhell.org. It sounds pretty wild.
It really does. And that transcript, the main source we're focusing on, it starts with this almost heavy feeling. The speaker, Ronaldo Aguiar Marcano, says he's recording it because he feels
Yeah.
this sense of finality.
Yeah.
He felt the whole situation was not sustainable anymore. Like things were coming to a head. He's worried about his safety, sure, but the immediate thing was getting the important things recorded, documenting the attack before they could, well, succeed.
And succeed at what, exactly? When you cut through all the, the high-stakes talk, what's the actual goal here?
It's surprisingly simple, almost mundane if it weren't so serious. Delete the data. The sources are clear. The attackers are focused entirely on wiping out the core asset of spyhell.org, this big geo-indexed dataset stored in Google Cloud. That's the prize.
Right, the geo-index data. Now, the source does say later, and we'll get into this, that deleting it is kind of pointless because he has backups everywhere.
Yeah, he claims he has copies and I back this up in like 10 different ways.
Yeah.
Says he can get back online in an hour. But that's almost beside the point for a deep dive. It's the methods they allegedly use, the attempt to delete the data, that's really fascinating and honestly quite concerning.
Because it reveals potential weaknesses in the systems we all use.
Exactly. Weaknesses in global payment systems, cloud providers, big banks. That's why you, listening right now, should probably care about one website's billing problems in California. Because if these huge systems, Chase, Google Cloud, the backbone of so much online activity, if they can be manipulated like this, well, what does that say about their security for everyone?
Yeah, it suggests a fundamental vulnerability. This isn't just about spyhell.org, it's about the playbook, how financial infrastructure can apparently be turned into a weapon.
That's the core of it. The goal is data deletion, and the path, according to these sources, leads straight to the website's Achilles heel.
Which is?
The single point of failure, Google Cloud billing.
Okay, let's focus on that vulnerability. The
Nice.
sources say spyhell.org runs entirely on Google Cloud. Makes sense. Huge provider. But the weak spot isn't some complex hack. It's just paying the bill.
Pretty much. It sounds almost anticlimactic, doesn't it? But yeah, the billing aspect. For the site to stay up, for that geo-index data to exist, they have to keep paying Google Cloud. Simple as that. And the payment method currently being used, according to the source, personal credit cards from Chase.
Chase Bank. Okay.
Okay.
Which specific cards?
2 were mentioned. An Explorer card, and then, importantly, a United Airlines co-branded Chase card. And the source specifically flags that United card. He calls it potentially compromised, suggesting the loyalty program link connects it somehow to his data, to a network prominence marker. It's complicated, but he sees it as a risk.
So Google Cloud needs paying. Chase cards are the method, one potentially flagged. Now, what's the attack plan, this billing anomaly play you mentioned?
Right, the alleged strategy here hinges on 2 things, speed and claimed insider access. Normally, Google Cloud is pretty forgiving if you miss a payment. You usually get days, maybe even a week, to sort it out before they suspend anything. And crucially, data deletion. That usually only happens 60 days after suspension. 60 days, that's the standard safety net.
A 60-day window, okay. But the attackers, they don't want normal procedures, right? They want it gone now.
Exactly, no patience.
The source.
The source makes this really startling claim that the attackers have people inside of Google and inside of Google Cloud, specifically within the billing team. So the whole plan is allegedly built around using these insiders to bypass all the normal delays. The idea is make the payment fail even by a day or get it rejected, and then boom, immediate suspension, immediate data deletion, no 60-day grace period, just an oops, everything got deleted scenario. Instantaneous, irreversible from the outside.
Wow. Okay, that claim of insiders within Google Cloud's billing team, that changes everything. That takes it from just a financial nuisance to, well, alleged corporate espionage with potentially huge implications, a major trust issue.
Absolutely. It links the financial vulnerability directly to a claimed human vulnerability inside one of the world's biggest tech companies.
Right.
And this claimed vulnerability sets the stage for the first attack method they're supposedly using right now.
Yes.
So one of the source details very, very carefully, the credit limit strangulation ruse.
Ah, yes, the Chase credit card strangulation focus. This is the immediate threat, right? Happening now, according to the source, described as a funnel strategy. like slowly tightening the screws.
Exactly. A gradual, deliberate reduction of the credit card limits over time, designed apparently to make payment impossible at a specific moment. But before we get into the numbers, you have to understand how weird this reduction looks given the cardholder's history. It's key context.
Right, because the source emphasizes he wasn't some credit risk.
Not at all. The cardholder, Aguiar Marcano, apparently had a stellar credit record, 14 years of history. Always paid right away or very quickly. He wasn't carrying balances on these cards for the Google Cloud stuff. He was using them for convenience and transaction processing speed. By all normal banking standards, his limit should have been stable or even increasing, not collapsing. His score 3 years back was cited as 841. That's top tier, easily top 5% in the U.S. He admits he might have been a bit late recently, maybe a week or two, because of all this conflict, but never actually delinquent. No collections.
So, high score, long history, immediate payments. Logically, high limits were justified. What were they initially before this alleged attack started?
Before the funnel, the combined limit on those two Chase cards was pretty high, around $60,000. The Explorer card, which wasn't being actively used at that point, was at $45,000. And the United branded card, the one actually paying the Google bills, was at $16,000. Healthy limits.
Okay, $60,000 combined. And then the reduction started. How fast did it happen?
Dramatically fast.
Oh.
Over just 3 months, according to the source. The total combined limit went from that $60,000 all the way down to just $16,000. A huge drop. And look how they did it. The inactive Explorer card, the $45,000 one, slashed to $10,000, which is odd in itself for an unused card with a good owner history.
But the real target, the precision strike, was on the card actually being used, right? The United card.
That's where the source says the intent becomes crystal clear. The United card, the one paying Google Cloud, was cut from $16,000 down to exactly $6,000. Now you have to connect that number, $6,000, to the website's actual costs. The source states the total monthly Google Cloud bill across all the different accounts they use for security adds up to almost $7,000.
Wait, hold on. The new limit is $6,000, and the monthly bill is almost $7,000.
Precisely. The new limit is intentionally, surgically set just below the amount needed to pay the bill. That exact placement, $6,000 limit versus a $7,000 need, is what the source points to as proof of targeting. If the limit was $7,100, the plan fails. But at $6,000, it forces a payment rejection. The source explains they use multiple Google accounts, so maybe the first few charges go through, pushing the balance near $6K. Then the next charge comes in from another account, tries to go over the $6K limit, and gets rejected. Bingo! That rejection is the engineered failure point. That's the supposed opening they needed to claim delinquency, and then, allegedly using the insiders, trigger the immediate data wipe.
That is incredibly specific. It's like knowing exactly how much fuel is needed and then making sure the tank holds just slightly less. Just insidious financial engineering.
What excuse did Chase give? They must have sent a letter or something.
Oh yeah, the source mentions receiving a standard form letter from Chase. Very vague stuff. Referencing general concerns about delinquency or risk, trying to make it look like a normal, albeit harsh, risk management decision. But when you line up the 14-year history, the 841 score, the immediate payment record, and then this impossibly precise limit reduction right below the known monthly cost, the source basically says the official explanation is transparently bogus, a manufactured failure, executed via Chase.
It's weaponizing the banking relationship itself to achieve this data deletion goal. It's pretty stunning. But you said this isn't the first time they tried something like this. There was an earlier attempt. Right, this current credit limit squeeze is just the latest tactic. But a year before, maybe February, March 2025, there was another really intricate attempt. And this one suggests maybe even deeper control, not just over bank decisions like limit cuts, but over the transaction processing itself. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, walk us through that older ruse, the 2024-2025 one. How did that work?
This one was about trickery, misdirection. A charge came through for, the source cites two possible amounts, maybe $3,200 or $3,904.29. It was a totally legitimate Google Cloud payment. But here's the trick. Instead of being labeled Google Cloud on the statement, it was allegedly deliberately mislabeled. Showed up as just some weird, random-looking three-letter code like XVF or XSW, something totally unrecognizable.
So, okay, anyone sees a charge for thousands of dollars from XVF pop up on their card, alarm bells ring. You'd contest that immediately. That's just standard practice.
Exactly. That was the whole point. The trap was designed to make the victim, Aguiar Marcano, cause the non-payment himself. By doing the responsible thing and contesting the weird charge, he was, without realizing it, reversing the payment he actually owed to Google Cloud. He was tricked into creating the non-payment status that could trigger the account closure. And the source says it almost worked that time. The account nearly got suspended.
Leveraging the victim's own diligence against them. Clever in a nasty way. But it didn't stop there, right? The source mentioned something about customer service involvement.
Yeah, this is where the claim of systemic control gets really chilling. First, when he tried to dispute the charge online, the system apparently wouldn't let him, blocked him, forced him to call Chase customer service, unusual in itself. So he calls, and the person who answers is described as highly skilled woman. She listens, quickly reverses the charge, the mislabeled Google Cloud charge, step one accomplished for the attackers.
Okay, charge reversed. Google payment effectively canceled. Then what?
Then the coup de grace, as you called it earlier, immediately after reversing the charge, without asking for permission, without consent, she just declares the transaction suspicious. And then she cancels the credit card entirely, the Explorer card, the one with the big $45,000 limit at the time, and then hangs up before he could even process it or tell her, wait, don't cancel the card.
Just canceled it on the spot after reversing the charge she needed to make.
Exactly. The alleged goal was double. Reverse the payment and take that high-limit card permanently out of commission. Make it harder to pay future bills, increasing the odds of failure down the line.
Unbelievable. Did he manage to fix it?
He did, just in time. He realized the amount of the weird charge matched the Google Cloud invoice. He figured out the trick. So he scrambled and paid Google manually, using some other method, preventing the suspension.
Yeah.
But the card, the Explorer card, stayed canceled. And connecting the dots, this is the same Explorer card that, even though canceled and unused, later had its non-existent limit somehow reduced from $45,000 down to $10,000 in the current funnel strategy we discussed.
It's like they never let go of targeting that specific account number.
It seems that way. The whole sequence, charge and mislabeling needing payment system access, the forced phone call bypassing online tools, the highly specific actions of the Chase employee, including the non-consensual cancellation. It paints a picture of alleged control that runs really deep. Transaction networks, bank protocols, maybe even specific personnel, all aimed at creating that one failure point for the Google data.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time on the how, the credit triangulation, the mislabeling trick, highly sophisticated targeted attacks. But now we have to ask the big question, why? Why risk so much? Why deploy tactics that could expose control over major U.S. banks just to delete one website's data? The sources connect this to something much bigger, right? This 3% racket.
Exactly. This is where we zoom out from the specific attacks on XisList.org to the alleged grand strategy behind it all. The source material argues, quite forcefully, that all the major online payment systems, think Stripe, Square, PayPal, Venmo, etc., are effectively part of an off-the-books monopoly. A network the source sometimes calls techno-libertarian and alleges is ultimately controlled or heavily influenced by figures like Xi Jinping, using well-known tech figures like Elon Musk and the PayPal mafia as sort of operational leads or frontmen.
That's a massive claim. A global payment monopoly controlled by geopolitical figures and tech billionaires. Which companies specifically are named as part of this alleged network?
The source is very specific. It names Stripe, Square, which is now BLOC, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle in the U.S., and even Interac up in Canada. And interestingly, the source claims these aren't just random guesses. These companies are apparently flagged within his own geo-index data with certain scores, paramilitary scores, and prominence markers, indicating their significance in this alleged structure. The core idea is this network has maintained quiet, effective control over online payments globally for years, maybe decades.
And the source connects this back to Elon Musk's history.
Yeah, they see a long historical thread. They point back to 1998, Musk founding X.com, which became PayPal. He was CEO there for a while. Then fast forward to today, he buys Twitter, renames it X, and openly talks about turning it into the everything app, basically, a global unregulated bank offering payments, credit, everything. The source sees this as the end game for this whole network. PayPal 2.0, but bigger, global, and crucially outside traditional banking regulations. Designed, in the source's stark words, to enslave people and entire nations financially.
Heavy stuff. Let's talk about the money itself. This 3% racket. Why is that specific number 3% so significant?
The argument is that this 3% transaction fee, charged by almost all these platforms, has been suspiciously high and stable for maybe 20 years. It's become normalized. But the source argues it's way too high for what's actually provided. The service takes milliseconds. And crucially, the payment processor network itself takes very low risk. If there's fraud or a default, it's usually the bank that issued the card, like Chase in our example, that eats the loss, not the network processing the payment. Yet the network takes a big 3% cut.
And the source compared this 3% to something else to show how inflated it might be.
Yeah, a really potent comparison. U.S. residential mortgages. He points out you could historically get a 30-year mortgage, a super high-risk long-term loan requiring tons of underwriting for maybe 2.6% interest. So if underwriting a 30-year loan with massive default risk costs 2.6%, why, the source asks, does a millisecond near-zero risk card transaction cost 3%? The conclusion drawn is that only a powerful, cohesive monopoly, the alleged PayPal Mafia techno-libertarian network, could keep that fee artificially high for so long. It's essentially a private tax on global commerce.
And the source argues this isn't just about profits, it's about power derived from that constant flow of money.
Exactly. The sheer volume makes it about control. The source literally says 3% of all the money in the world would be enough to subdue the entire planet. It's about the immense, untraceable power that kind of global cut provides. Centralized control is the alleged goal, not just good quarterly earnings.
Okay, so let's tie the attacks on spyhell.org, the credit card tricks, back to this huge alleged racket. Why risk exposing control over Chase systems for this one website?
This is what the source calls the massive operational security blunder, the great irony. By trying so hard, using these sophisticated traceable methods involving a major U.S. bank like Chase to silence this one website, they inadvertently, according to the source, prove that your network has full control of these credit card systems and platforms. They create evidence against their own monopoly. They risk exposing their cash cow, the whole payment processing system, just to swat this one fly, essentially. The source sees it as a potentially fatal mistake, giving U.S. regulators the proof they might need to go after the whole network's assets.
A potentially catastrophic miscalculation, risking the golden goose to silence one critic. Which brings us to the source's conclusion about all this. Despite the complexity of the attacks, he calls them naive, silly, even futile. Why?
Because, from his perspective, even if they succeed in deleting the data from that one Google Cloud account, it achieves absolutely nothing strategically. He thinks they fundamentally misunderstand the situation and the real nature of the threat they perceive him to be.
You mentioned countermeasures earlier. What has he done to make the deletion attempt futile?
Well, first, the immediate stuff. He took steps to make sure he wouldn't fall into the non-payment trap again, given the $6,000 limit. Secured other payment methods, presumably. But more strategically, the data itself. He says it's backed up everywhere. Copies and sent. I backed this up in like 10 different ways. He claims if they wipe the Google Cloud instance, he can have a whole thing running again somewhere else in about an hour. So the deletion itself is just a temporary inconvenience, not a kill shot.
But it's not just his personal backups, right? He claims the data is already out there.
Yes, and that's the core of the futility argument. He explicitly states he's sent reports and data to U.S. agencies. He names the DEA, the IRS, and he strongly implies, based on interactions, that the FBI already has the full database and is likely running its own analysis on it. He compares it to registering a book with the Library of Congress or filing court documents. The information is officially out and duplicated in secure, powerful hands.
So if the FBI and others already have the data, then deleting his copy on Google Cloud is completely pointless. It doesn't erase the information at all.
Exactly. That's the source's point. The entire elaborate, risky operation targeting his Google account is fundamentally misdirected. He even mocks them slightly in the recording, telling the alleged attackers they should stop wasting resources on Aguar and his easily restored data. He says they should focus on the real challenge, destroying the data of the FBI. He basically tells them, you're fighting the wrong person and the wrong data. Go pick on someone your own size. It's quite bold.
This critique of their strategy ties into that interesting idea he mentioned, the communist paradox.
Right. It's his term for why they might be making such a strategic blunder. He speculates they either can't grasp the gravity of their situation or they suffer from this communist paradox, meaning a highly centralized top-down power structure becomes obsessed with controlling the visible, immediate symbols of dissent like his one website instance. But they're blind to, or incapable of dealing with, the decentralized, distributed nature of the actual threat, which, in this case, is the data residing securely within multiple U.S. federal agencies. They focus on the symptom, not the cause. Their own structure creates blind spots.
Fascinating concept, focusing on the visible puppet while ignoring the puppeteers, perhaps. And just looping back to the immediate tactics, did the source mention any final countermeasure against the ongoing credit limit squeeze?
Yes, one last practical point. Remember that Explorer card that got canceled way back in the first ruse? Chase sent him a replacement plastic card for it. He received it, but he deliberately never activated it, never used it, kept it clean. He says he's holding that replacement card physically secure, somewhere safe. It's his ace in the hole. If they finally succeed in killing the currently used United card via the $6,000 limit tactic, he can just activate that pristine replacement Explorer card and switch the Google Cloud billing to it instantly. Checkmate on the funnel strategy.
Wow. Okay. This has been quite the journey. We started with essentially a detailed complaint about a Chase credit limit reduction from one specific source document, and we've ended up deep in allegations of a global financial monopoly, state-level espionage tactics, alleged insiders at Google, the PayPal mafia, Xi Jinping. It's dizzying. So after unpacking all of that, what's the big takeaway? What does it all mean?
I think the core assertion from the sources is that this alleged control network, the techno-libertarians or PayPal mafia, sees its grip on the online payment system, that 3% racket, as so vital, so foundational to its power, that it's willing to take extreme risks, like allegedly manipulating U.S. banking infrastructure, Chase, and compromising cloud providers, Google, just to protect it. The specific, almost obsessive attempts to silence this one website, XisList.org, are presented as direct actions to preserve that larger financial empire and the unregulated power it provides. They're allegedly risking exposure of the entire system to plug one small leak.
It really does seem like a disproportionate risk if the source's account is accurate, using a sledgehammer to crack a nut and potentially bringing the whole house down in the process.
Which leads to a really interesting question, something for you, the listener, to maybe think about after this. If these sources are even partially right, if a powerful, sophisticated global network, allegedly controlling payments and having insider reach, makes such obvious, high-risk operational security mistakes when trying to silence one source of inconvenient information, what other errors, perhaps less visible ones, might they be making elsewhere? What vulnerabilities might exist in these vast, complex systems that aren't immediately obvious? And maybe more profoundly, what is the real cost, not just in dollars, but in compromised systems, exposed personnel, regulatory risks, and lost secrecy? What's the true price they're paying to maintain that alleged 3% racket and the control it represents?
That's a heavy thought to end on. The hidden costs and unseen cracks in the foundation of global finance and tech, definitely something to mull over. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you for joining us as we navigated these complex and frankly disturbing allegations about our financial and digital infrastructure.